So hello and welcome to the Temporary Temples online crop circle conference. And I think now we're into our fourth weekend. And this evening it is lecture 7, I think, which is Veronica Goodchild is with us this evening. So just for those that kind of need orientating kind of where we are. Veronica is going to talk for about an hour this evening, and then the session will open up for questions. I will keep an eye on the chat box so that if any of you run into any particular problems, you can let me know in the chat box, but please keep your questions for Veronica at the end of the session when you'll be able to put them to her yourself. And if this is the first time that you're joining us, welcome. We still have a couple of lectures left to go. So tomorrow evening, which is Sunday, the 25th of October, we have Dan Vidler joining us. And Dan will be taking us for a tour inside some of the crop circles from the 2020 season. So look forward to that. And then next weekend, which will be Halloween on Saturday, the 31st of October, we have Professor Jonathan Paul de Veerville with us. And on Sunday, for those of you that came, Sunday the 1st of November, for those of you that came to our consciousness workshop earlier on in the month, there is a second session for that, which will be at the same time, 6 p.m. on Sunday the 1st of November. So if you booked for the first session, then you automatically get the second one, and you'll get an email with all the details and the link for that on the day. So I'd like to just read you some information about Veronica and give her a little bit of an introduction. So Dr. Veronica Goodchild is Professor Emerita at Pacifica Graduate Institute, where she taught Jungian psychology and psychotherapy for over 16 years. She grew up in England, studied at London University, and moved to the US in her early 20s. Eventually completing her graduate education in New York and California. She practiced as a psychotherapist for many years before turning to teaching and writing. In the last few years, Veronica has developed pilgrimage journeys in Southwest France, Crete even, and mainland Greece, and the UK, uniting her interest in myth and legend with visits to sacred sites. Veronica has had a keen interest in the intersection of psyche and nature, and began visiting crop circles in 2008. She has traveled extensively in France, where she now lives, Peru and Egypt, following the hints of her dreams. She is the author of Eros and Chaos, The Sacred Mysteries and Dark Shadows of Love, and of Songlines of the Soul, Pathways to a New Vision for a New Century. And this evening, Veronica's presentation is entitled Crop Circles and the Mystery of the Grail. So very big welcome to you, Veronica, and thank you very, very much for being with us.
Thank you very much.
So what I'm going to do now, Veronica, is I'm going to make you a co-host for the meeting. And then you should be able to share your screen so that everybody can see your slides.
Okay.
And when Veronica gets going with her talk, I'm going to ask everybody, please, to turn off your video and mute your mic, your sound, so that it doesn't disturb Veronica or anybody else while we're listening to her. And then when the presentation's finished, I'll put on my video and I'll invite you all to turn yours on again so that we can chat at the end of the session.
Okay, hang on one sec.
That's it. You should just be able to press that tab there, Veronica.
Okay, have I got it?
Yep.
Okay, and then, okay, is there any way?
You need the
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Brilliant.
Okay, let me just move to my first slide. And while it's just loading, thank you, Karen, again for this invitation. And really, thank you so much for setting up these lectures online, and really, I think, making the crop circle phenomenon so widely available, apparently across many countries. So that's very, very exciting that people are drawn to hearing these different perspectives on the crop circles. I myself can't imagine why everyone on the planet isn't just marveling at these things. So anyway, it's enormously encouraging to see you here tonight. Okay. In her book, From Ritual to Romance, Jessie Weston writes, "At the Grail story's root lies the record of an ancient ritual having for its ultimate object the initiation into the secret of the sources of life, physical and spiritual. It was utilized for imparting high spiritual teaching concerning the relation of humankind to the divine source of our being." Now, this first slide is of a crop circle that appeared near Barbary Castle in Bergerac Down this summer on June the 14th. And I hope you can see that it's a circular mandala shape, but there are 12 cups or chalices around the center, with the stem of each cup making a triangle toward the center. And this was dubbed the Grail formation pretty early on. And so I decided to talk about the Grail because it was one of the formations of this year that just really grabbed my attention. So here we go. Temple sites and mythic tales. The uniting factor of all temple sites, whether stone monuments or temporary grain ones, has to do, this is Avebury, of course, and here's another of my favorite crop circles from 2001, has to do with drawing down the heavens above to the earth below symbolically, and thereby uniting humankind with the divine, as above, so below. But I would add in between too, as this is the domain that unifies both, as in Corbin's descriptions of the imaginal world, mundus imaginalis, a subtle world between spirit and matter, but nevertheless very real. It's described in Jung's psychoid archetype, where matter is psyche and psyche matter, which can be expressed, for example, by synchronicities, and as in descriptions of the anima mundi and a felt sense of the soul of the world, often personified by Sophia or Mary in medieval times. And here is Sophia with the alchemist trying to keep up, following in her footsteps. She's representing the soul of the world, and you can see her bounties that she's holding both left and right hands. And she's sort of bathed in the moonlight, but the alchemist is sort of with his goggles on. Not quite sure what that is. He's looking very carefully into the secrets of nature, but he's holding a lamp. These between domains or places usually involve an altered state of consciousness that moves us deeply on a feeling level and therefore seeks to transform us. The knowledge and mysteries of sacred geometry and its symbolic significance in temples or crop formations can also affect this change and so aim to transform us as well. Synchronicities in relation to sacred geometry in crop circles. Karen, for example, shared a great example in relationship, a dream of that she called the flower piano, in relationship to the sixpenny Handley formation. And Robin Heath, with his research and the Clearwood formation last year, he talked about that in his talk. And these synchronicities embody these eternal truths in often unexpected and possibly life-changing ways, taking us into that liminal space, that aha space that transforms consciousness into a felt sense of mystery. Temple sites, both permanent and temporary, This is the one that Jeff talked about at Ogbourne, St. George. And here's Stonehenge, contain much geometrical information, which, as John Michel has shown, relates to the power of number to demonstrate how unified certain key ground plan, for example, Glastonbury, Stonehenge, and the Jerusalem Temple, are proportionally with the Earth and solar system relationships, and how this order and harmony, reflected on many scales, can be reproduced in society to create stable systems and institutions while preserving the freedom of the individual to express their own creative contribution. We see lamentably how lacking we are in this kind of cosmology today, having lost a sense of our sacred bond with nature and the cosmos, and how this loss results in chaos and destruction of both institutions, families, and the environment alike, threatening our very survival. This is the moment of deadly peril that we are at today. We are in a wasteland. Temple sites invariably encode, in particular, in addition to geometric symbolism, astronomical and astrological features, the relationship of sun and moon, for example. And as Robin Heath has shown, Stonehenge, one of the world's most famous stone circles, records these solar and lunar cyclic rhythms. It is in part the sacred geometry encoded in both crop circles and stone circles that help create the feeling we have in response to their beauty. Just as when you enter a cathedral like Chartres or Westminster Abbey or wherever, you feel the awe of the place without even knowing perhaps anything about sacred geometry. Add the music and you are transported. Beauty, as Plato reflects, is what awakens the soul to its true origins, to its calling from the stars, to its songline, its oime in Greek, in the lands beyond time, and awakens the memory out of forgetting what we once knew. This is amnesis, which means unforgetting, and sometimes we call it remembering. This profound and ancient knowledge, though we've mostly forgotten it due to the characteristics of number that remain true whether or not we believe in them, therefore remain ever or eternally true. So is true now as ever, today, as ever before. Systems of education were based on symbolic number and form the basis of the teachings of the 7 liberal arts taught in ancient universities, like the school at Chartres, for example. Clearly, an advanced level of consciousness lies behind this scientific and wisdom-based knowledge. It seems as if this higher level of consciousness informs the crop formations as well, not only through direct experience by entering into and experiencing their energy, but also by exploring their geometric signature as well, and what the numbers might mean or point to. Both perspectives perhaps giving us a glimpse into our own access to deepened dimensions of consciousness, as we might feel in a cathedral or a pyramid, a sacred grove, or stone circle. What I want to propose in this talk is that myth and legend can also provide this wisdom. And in fact, it is my view that because of the story quality of myths, they give us an additional template that enhances the geometric significance of the formations with archetypal tales of human trials and blessings that portray the potential for the evolution of our consciousness toward greater maturity and for the evolution of matter to a higher level. This is the cover of Wolfram von Eschenbach's Parsifal, and some of my remarks on the Grail legend are going to be based on this story, but I've used the Lindsay Clark version of it because it's so accessible and it's so beautifully written. Okay, so here we are back to the Grail Cups crop circle. And it is this formation that allows us to use the Grail myth as a further amplification of the formation. For it is how, through amplifying the meaning of the formation with story, we ourselves can be helped to live the teachings found there, to embody above and below, the dark and the light, the yin and yang, the sun and moon, the opposites that, torn apart, create dissolution and chaos, the wasteland of current times, and that seek each other to create a more substantial nature of instinct and spirit united, earth and cosmos combined. Like a dream that seeks to change us, so do the earth dreams of the crop formations seek a transformation within our own soul bodies, both collectively and individually. This is the alchemical myth of transformation and transmutation that lies behind Jung's psychology of individuation or self-realization. He writes about alchemy, both as a symbolic system and as an experience of the subtle realm, a place of psychophysical union and vivid visions and symbols, the world of creativity. This subtle in-between liminal place, people have described on visiting crop circles as well. It is the power of the imaginal world, the power of the presence of the visionary imagination, the world of mysteries where, like the Grail castle, terrors and marvels happen and transformation begins. Before proceeding, I'd like to say something about Jung and number. So I'm giving a rather long preamble before we get to the myth. Through a vision of Christ, whose body was made of greenish gold, the green of manifested life, which Hildegard calls the viriditas, and Dylan Thomas in that wonderful poem, the force that through the green fuse drives the flower. So in this vision of Christ, whose body was made of greenish gold, the green of manifested life and the alchemical gold as a spiritual value, Jung came to realize that there is a living quality to matter that seeks to guide us along the way of our journeys through life. Here's a picture from Jung's Red Book, and I like this picture because I feel that it demonstrates the union of Earth with the cosmos and the mysteries above and beyond the cosmos. But it's down to the, you can see down there sort of dragons and other animals, and there's a kind of tree of life there whose roots sink into the earth, but whose trunk reaches up to the heavens. And there's that sort of lightning flash in the middle of that mandala structure at the top. And that to me signifies the soul of the world and the spirit of matter. So Jung realized this living quality to matter. And we see this especially in synchronicities that link psyche and matter in a non-local manner. A non-local manner means it's not cause. The dream and the event in the world or whatever, it's not cause and effect. It's outside of cause and effect, which is why he called them acausal. But nevertheless, these synchronicities contain meaning for the future direction of our lives. So when you have an important synchronicity, it's not enough just to have an interesting experience. You're invited to realize something new, manifest something new, or realize a new content in consciousness, something creative usually, and you have to pay attention to them to live the hint that you get in the synchronicity. His vision pointed to the necessity for the recovery of this living quality, which was once called anima mundi. And anima mundi is considered the animating principle of the subtle world behind this world, which is called the one world or unus mundus in alchemy. radiating as a life force throughout the whole of creation. And here's another picture from the Red Book. I'm sure most of you are aware this is the book where Jung really wrote his formative experiences. He went on a very long journey to the Mundus Imaginalis. And this, I love this picture again, because it shows the tree of life, as it were, but this extraordinary experience in the middle of it. So Jung's vision helps to restore matter as sacred, and nature, the physical world, and our bodies as elements infused with the divine, correcting the egregious split between matter and spirit throughout the history of Christianity, I should say Orthodox Christianity, correcting the suppression of the mystical side of alchemy with the rise of science in the 17th century, and correcting the idea that the cosmos or nature has no soul. Jung was helped in this exploration of the unity between inner and outer worlds by quantum physicist and Nobel laureate Wolfgang Pauli, whose area of research was the subatomic level of reality. Jung's work concerned the inner world, Pauli's the laws governing the outer world. However, they both realized that when the outer world seems to be acting psychologically on us as in a synchronicity, that this defied many of their respective disciplines' assumptions. The challenge for Pauli was how can physics admit that matter has meaning, which he could observe from his archetypal dreams that he worked on with Jung and von Franz. And for Jung, how is it that inner processes, the world of psychology, occur in the outer world? So both researchers realized the limits of their own points of view and of their understanding of nature's wholeness. So there was a need for a broader point of view in evaluating the relationship between inner and outer. And I would say we're very much in this time of needing a broader point of view that goes beyond all the usual categories. Jung arrived at the idea that the link between the two worlds may rest on number. That is, that numbers in maths and physics, in their symbolic and qualitative aspect, not just their counting aspect, parallel numbers in dreams and symbolism. That studying the individual properties or qualities of numbers would lead to an understanding of the seamless connection between matter and psyche. So, for example, our life story, which we're born with for Jung as a potential, you're not born tabula rasa, as some other analysts have suggested, you already are born with the blueprint, as it were, as a potential though. And so it unfolds in stages, first this part, then that part, etc., and evolves successively over the course of our lifetime. And of course, when it's not going well, that's, you know, when you can fall into depression, anxiety, etc. And that's where it's really where you've gone off your path. And so then the work of therapy through dream work and so on has to do with trying to get back on track. And of course, synchronicities help a lot at that point. So there's this secret symmetry between the inner and outer world, and psychology and physics have this common ground. Number as a principle of order and meaning is the unifying link. Both disciplines also share the limits of causality as an explanatory principle, for synchronicity demonstrates acausality. And this is what I've just alluded to, that a synchronicity, you can't say the synchronicity happened because you had that dream. It doesn't work that way. They're unrelated in that sense, but nevertheless, they're joined in their meaning. And in quantum physics, too, activated electrons jump into different orbital paths, levels, but their path can never be predicted, and you don't know where they go in between. So there is a spontaneous and unpredictable, acausal and non-local aspect to life that nevertheless conspires to push us along our journey. What might be the nature of this aspect, this magical, unexplained something? Are they, for example, crop circles, spontaneous creations out of the world soul. They appear spontaneously overnight. And I've been learning so much from my crop circle friends about the enormous complexities of geometries in some of these formations. It's just astounding. It's mind-blowing, actually. So certainly genuine ones, how do they appear just like that, out of the blue, as it were? And one other thing, because psyche can transcend the inner world and act in matter, images and dreams can't any longer be described as purely psychological. This led Jung to calling archetypes psychoid, psychic-like, or matter-like, but they both seem to partake of psyche and matter, and somehow neither psyche nor matter. So again, unity of existence is implied. And the alchemists also believed that, because they were also, like Jung and Pauli, interested in the relationship of spirit and matter. What was the connection? What was the secret bond there? And again, this one world, this unus mundus, is a potential, but also something that could be achieved in the outer world as a reflection of inner unity. Okay. Now, sacred geometry also reveals the invisible in the visible, the eternal realm of the ever-true qualities of number and proportion are found as underlying patterns in the visible world of plants, flowers, rocks, human subatomic particles, architecture, and the motions and relative sizes of planets. This is a mosaic, a Roman mosaic from lovely museum on the Mediterranean coast in northern Catalonia on the Bay of Roses. It's absolutely astounding. You look at this, you can see, you know, the five shape of the beehive. You can see the flower of life. I mean, it's just absolutely astounding. I can't remember quite the date, these dates. They're probably around the 200, I don't know, 200 BC to 200 AD, I expect. Karen has shown how these numerical signatures and geometric complexities are beautifully present in crop circles. In both cases, the ideal is only ever perfectly manifested in physical reality. So although there is, one might say, a fall of sorts, we are reminded how imperfection is part of wholeness. We were never meant to be perfect. And anyway, do you want this wild rose to look like a diagram? Specifically, Karen has shown us in the Grail formation how the numbers 12 and 7 are represented. So as I mentioned, there are 12 intersecting arcs which create the 12 vessels or the cups going around a central circle. There's the center of the Grail formation. Actually, you could argue that there were 3 circles and maybe even more if you count the laid crop and the standing one. So number 12, as John Michel and others have pointed out, is related to the ground plan that is mirrored in the heavens and provides the ordering and structuring of human societies around the world. It's related to the zodiacal signs in astrology, 12 months of the year, times division into night and day, 12 disciples, 12 inches in a foot, etc. 12 notes in a chromatic scale. 12 of Arthur's knights traditionally sit at the round table. Number 7 is one of the most venerated numbers of the decad. It's related to the days of the week, the visible planets, a day of rest, the 7 liberal arts, etc. And it's almost 1/4 of a lunar month, and so it links to the feminine. In fact, 7 is called the virgin number. It's untouched by other numbers, and it's connected to virgin goddesses, goddesses who are one in themselves, like Artemis and Athena, beholden to no one. Nothing to do with being chaste. They were the sacred temple prostitutes who initiated men into the mysteries of the goddess, or the midwives who helped others bear children. There are 7 notes in the diatonic scale. So there's a musical relationship between number 12 and number 7. And we're going to come back to this at the end of my talk when I play you a piece of music. Karen noted the relationship between 12 and 7. 3 times 4, 3 plus 4. And John Michel writes about the 12 and 7 pointed stars at Stonehenge, and how the Grail formation, 12 is the obvious esoteric number. It's what strikes you sort of almost immediately, but it is companioned by a hidden 7-fold star. She called it an esoteric number, and these 2 numbers, I believe, are also present symbolically in our Grail myth. We will see how the 12 as a solar masculine number is united in a holy wedding or divine marriage with 7, the moon or lunar principle, which points to the feminine mysteries behind the veil. And the marriage of sun and moon is also beautifully presented in the Clearwood formation. Whoops, how did that happen? Let's see. Ah, there it is. So this is the Clearwood formation of last year. This was one that I and a group of individuals who'd been on the Sacred Britain pilgrimage last year. There's a whole story actually that goes along with this crop circle, but we had really meditated and asked for one, and one that could speak to the theme of our pilgrimage, which was quite a lot to do with the Grail, as you might imagine. Anyway, I can't go into that because it'll be too distracting, but it's an interesting story. But what I love about this formation is that if you look at it upside down, and I actually turned Steve's beautiful photograph upside down so you can see it this way, the moon is cradling the sun, and it's as big as the sun, or you might even imagine it's bigger than the sun. And it reminded me of, there's a 17th century mystic saying that goes as follows: when the moon shines as brightly as the sun, the Messiah will come. And of course, the Messiah refers to the new cosmic consciousness, unity consciousness, or consciousness that unites rational thinking with shamanic visionary knowledge, science and the dreaming mind, understanding and direct experience or gnosis, magic and unpredictability, all these opposites. So I particularly love, because I think that's the stage we're at the moment, trying to bring the lunar principle into more balanced and equal partnership with the solar one. 7 is also the number of operations or stages in the alchemical transformation process. And here's the mountain of the adepts, and you see the different, operations going up into that temple. And another picture that shows this is this beautiful alchemical picture called the 7-petaled rose. And of course, roses are normally 5-fold, but this has been used as a metaphor for the transformation process in alchemy. There's a lot that could be said about this. Karen and I had a delightful exchange about it, and she pointed out the bee and the beehives on the right, and then of course left there are these spiders and spiders' webs, and it's in the shape of the astrological symbol of Venus. So we'll also see how the Grail myth is a story of transformation through 3 main stages. There's the Negredo, the descent into darkness and despair, symbolized by the raven, the albedo, where reflection and insight begin with the ability to disidentify from your issues and to integrate the shadow, begin to do that. That's symbolized by the moon, that's the whitening. And the rubedo, where loss and grief, together with ruthless honesty and reflection, can move toward living or embodying a new principle of life, symbolized by the marriage of the king and the queen, which would be the sun and the moon in that crop formation. Okay, after that rather long preamble, but I did want to go into sacred geometry because I'm starting to learn a little bit about it. And I'm so grateful to many of my crop circle friends who've initiated me into this whole topic. It's absolutely fascinating. Okay, so to the Grail myth, here's a picture of the knights round a table. And in the middle, I'm sorry, it's not a very good picture. You see in the center there, that golden ring is where the Grail is. And you can see it's a sort of luminous and numinous object. So why might this be a myth which famously arose spontaneously across Europe in the 12th century, be a myth also for our time, 700 to 800 years later? And I'm going to look at some of the major themes of this myth. So for me, picking up once again stories of the Grail began with a powerful dream vision that I had in June of 2016. In the dream, I'm working on dreams with a woman, and we're on the seashore. Suddenly, I look up and see, arising out of the ocean, a large chalice cup, and I know that this is the chalice of the Grail. The magical cup is drawing up water from below and spraying it out like a fountain, while at the same time it is receiving golden light from above, flowing down into it. The flower and the power of this vision propels me out of sleep. And this dream I've been working with for the last 4 years. It's an ongoing dream for me. It's really one of those life dreams. It led to a huge change of life and to leading pilgrimages and to our move here to France, the land of the Grail. Now the question has been asked for hundreds of years, what is the Grail? There are many stories that are part of the Grail legends. The Grail is a chalice, a platter of abundance, a book, or a stone. Usually it's an emerald stone. And of course, any stone in a myth like that connects it with the philosopher's stone in alchemy. But the Grail is centrally related to the ancient symbol of the vessel. This is a picture of my own Grail cup that I found at Chalice Well in Glastonbury. The vessel is considered a life-giving or healing cauldron, inspiring strength or wisdom or dispensing grace. The actual word Grail is very ancient, going back to the bloodline of kings who descended from the gods. The Grail is also the cosmic center and a symbol of the heart. It was always a symbol for the eternal feminine, a sacred womb, tomb, the cave of initiation and transformation. In my dream, I was struck by the suspension, as it were, of the cup between the upper world of spirit and the world of water and earth below, as if the chalice itself represented the love bond between spirit and matter. I was also impregnated by the profound sense of a sacred mystery emanating from the vision that seemed to point to the deeper secrets of the soul. This elusive sight also hinted at the Aquarian water bearer of the new eon. Furthermore, as a central and centering symbol, chalice alludes to the circle whose center is everywhere and circumference nowhere, an image of God symbolizing the spiritual goal of the seeker, also reflected in the rows of the enclosed garden motif, which, like the vessel, was depicted as the object of a profound search, which is at the heart, really, of the Grail legends. The Grail has many meanings, commonly referred to as the cup of the Last Supper. Here's Joseph of Arimathea, and the cup hidden away in a cave, which looks as if it's got a tree coming out of it. Or of Jesus' blood from the crucifixion. Collected go the legends by Joseph of Arimathea, possibly Jesus' father or uncle, who, according to one legend, established a Grail Center and the earliest Christian church in Glastonbury. Or it represents the teachings of Jesus, symbolic of the death and renewal mysteries in the tradition of Isis and Osiris, perhaps even the royal bloodline of Jesus and Mary Magdalene. In Mary Magdalene's relationship to the Grail, her cup is often imaged with light or divine fire streaming from it. And this picture of the Magdala is from the Catalunya Archaeological Museum in Barcelona. Miriam of Magdala is the visionary Grail priestess and prophet, the Grail bearer, queen of heaven on earth. Or her womb is the Grail as the carrier of the bloodline, or the body itself is considered a sacred vessel. Thus, each one of us is a potential carrier of the Grail. In Mary Magdalene's recently translated Gospel, which is titled The Gospel of the Beloved Companion, the Complete Gospel of Mary Magdalene, is itself regarded by the tradition that holds this extraordinary document as the true Grail, the treasure that was secreted out of Montségur, the legendary last stand in the Cathar genocide here in the southwest of France in the 13th century. And Montségur is considered a sacred mountain. In the story, in Parsifal's story, the mountain is called Mont Sauvage, and it's also where the Grail Castle is found. And even to this day, it is thought that the etheric Grail Castle resides at Montségur. The Grail chalice is also related to the hidden treasure motif in legends and fairy tales that, as Von Franz says in her and Emma Jung's book, The Grail Legend, comes to the surface of the earth once every 700 years, announcing its presence by little blue flames. And the work of redemption consists in releasing this light buried in matter and reuniting it with the realm of light. Here we can see both Gnostic, Sophianic, and alchemical ideas related to the Grail mystery. And for this work, we need the alchemical attitude toward the opus of work, meditation, and imagination, together with waiting for the right moment, the kairos, for things to happen. And I would say nowadays, the crop circles represent this hidden treasure. It's rescued to me and made conscious and more conscious by all the efforts that individuals make to understand them and then to communicate their insights. I've just been marveling at the different points of view that all the presenters have contributed. And you see that, like a round table, each one, as it were, is called to say something else about the mystery through the crop circles. And I think this is truly one of the treasures that the crop circles offer us. The chalice itself has a background in the creation of the cosmos, in the Greek krater, or cup of the gods, the Celtic cauldron of rebirth, of Caridwen, and the cup or bowl of inspiration in the Dionysian and Orphean mysteries, as well as the initiation cup in the Eleusinian mysteries. This is a very old Grail initiation vessel. I think it's considered 1st or 2nd century. The cups could also refer to the drinking of potions in the death and renewal mysteries that led to a transpersonal revelation in which death and life are experienced as one. And in my Songlines book, in chapter 6, I think it is, on crop circles, which I've subtitled Star Codes, Earth Dreams, I also discuss the Eleusinian mysteries. They're worth going into. They lasted for hundreds of years, and it was obviously related to Demeter and the Kore, but the sort of finalizing, the goal to which the mysteries led were to have an experience, probably a bit like a near-death experience, where death is just seen as another side of life and life as another side of death. The quest for the Grail is the quest for the highest value, the soul-sustaining water of life, a journey beset with initiatory trials and tests in search of the healing elixir and the mystery of life. In Wolfram's version, as it's told by Lindsay Clark in his Parsifal, the tale takes place in the strange and wondrous dreamscape of imaginal reality. It involves the story of the adventures of Parsifal, on his way to becoming a knight, a tale of an innocent whose focus on fighting and conquest leaves a trail of grieving women and broken hearts of which he is oblivious behind. There is the wounded Fisher King, a wound to the groin and therefore to sexual love and to eros. And it all takes place in the landscape of a wasteland, a land where the earth is laid waste by war and greed, and the Grail is lost. This dreamscape reflects essentially where we are today. These themes of wounded love and parched earth that we see everywhere around us are mirrored in one way or another in the tales of the various relationships throughout the story. Now, this is my favorite part. It's one of my favorite parts of the story. This is the loathsome female, the loathly lady, the archetype of the loathly lady, symbol of the dark and neglected feminine. She's described, however, especially von Eschenbach's version is fantastic. A feisty and learned, old and boar-faced hag named Kundry. And she's great because she comes into Arthur's court just about when Arthur is about to knight Parsifal for all his knightly conquests. And she comes in riding in a donkey, and she's in this crumpled old wedding gown. And she just excoriates him for his repression, neglect, and denial of the feminine. So these two wisdom figures, Kundry, and then there is this wise counsel of the reflective hermit monk, Trevisan, two figures who live on the wilderness edge of society, who provide the power source of transformation in the tale. They provide the wake-up call to Parsifal. These solitary archetypal figures of the wise old woman and the wise old man speak unflinchingly and unsentimentally to the necessity of heart and soul values beyond the ambitions of the self-involved ego. They challenge both Parsifal and Gawain. Gawain in this story is his sort of soul brother, it's his other half, in scathing ways as only a wise elder can, on the limitations of their choices and attitudes to knightly code and conquest, and in their relationships with women to whom they cause only suffering and grief. So when he gets challenged by Kundry first and then Trevisan, That's what sends the innocent Parsifal into the Negredo, into the depths of despair, as he begins to wake up to what his life has really been about. One of the central themes is that the search for knighthood and conquest must be surrendered to the development of the capacity for compassion and the values of the heart, which involves asking the right question. What ails thee? A question that by its very nature expresses the compassion it seeks to convey. And it is not only knights who are ruled by the power principle of willful conquest. Some of the female characters have to face their power-driven qualities and hidden wounds in order to find love. In this tale, in the Wolfram Clark tale, the Grail is a stone that fell from heaven, and in which the opposing powers of light and darkness are eventually reconciled. The stone is called lapis exilis, exiled stone, insignificant or uncomely stone. In alchemy, the stone, the philosopher's stone, is described as that which kills and yet is exceeding precious. It describes itself, and this is the stone speaking of itself. I beget the light, but the darkness too is of my nature. And that's from Jung in his volume, Psychology and Alchemy. In Clark's Parsifal, the problem of facing our shadows is viewed from both the generational point of view. Parsifal's father, Gamma Ray, was also a heroic knight type, leaving women in the dust behind. So both from a generational point of view and a cosmic one. There was a war in heaven when the forces of dark rose against the powers of light and the cosmos was torn apart. But a group of angels wouldn't take sides, and these guardians of the Grail came to earth to protect the stone of healing that holds both the light and the dark together, that which makes life whole again, and from which all earthly bounty flows. The splits found within, between, down generations, and in our shadow projections, both personal and cultural, in our broken connection to nature and broken bond with Earth's relationship to the cosmos, all contribute to our wasteland. And this must change if we are to survive, if we are to restore the Grail. The wonder of this 12th century tale is that it is so remarkably contemporary and shows the necessity of descent and renewal, and also what makes it possible. But although down through the ages, individuals and heretical groups, such as mystics, alchemists, Kabbalists, Cathar Gnostic groups, troubadours, all who thrived in the cultural flowering of the 11th to the 13th centuries in this part of France, particularly in the Languedoc, where there was a tremendous urge on the part of the collective psyche to once again honor the feminine and feminine eros. And mystics, artists, scientists, poets, and unknown individuals of all ages have dared, often at great peril to themselves, to embark on the journey of initiation, death, and rebirth, and protect the Grail. We have still yet to choose, though indeed there are hopeful signs everywhere. But we need to choose on a broader level the quest to make disintegration conscious and to participate in whatever small way we can in life's renewal. Perhaps COVID is a ruthless messenger, like Kundry, to draw our attention to the urgency of this path. Are we asking the right questions? Questions are central to the Grail. The age-old question, what do women want? As well as the other Grail question, whom does the Grail serve? Are also taken up as we wade through the waters of the development and then limitations of the warring heroic ego, the wounding of the soul through the wounds of love, to the necessity of owning our shadow side, grieving our losses, and facing our mistakes, to embrace our vulnerability on the way toward opening our heart and the healing power of love. This, of course, is a very tall order. Now, in the story, it goes even further, because in this story, of course, there are many, many tales of the Grail, but in this particular story, there is even a reconciliation of Muslim and Christian, as we trace the play of opposites in many guises throughout the story, and see how then, as now, our divisions, both personal and collective, keep us from what we most desire. In fact, Parsifal only arrives at the Grail Castle for the second time. The first time, he doesn't ask the question, so the abundance of the Grail disappears, and the castle remains unredeemed, under a spell, basically psychologically, we would say unconscious. But he only gets there a second time after he's gone through this reevaluation, let's say, of his life, after he reconciles with his Muslim half-brother, because his name is Firfitz. Parsifal and Firfitz share the same father, Gamere, but they have different mothers. One is from Northern Africa, the first one. That's Firfitz's mother, and Parsifal's mother is, I'm forgetting her name right now, but she is the one that, not wanting any more grief to come to her, she tries to protect Parsifal and doesn't let him go out into the world. But of course, nature takes over and he gets himself out of that cobweb, as it were. Furthermore, at the end of this story, after Parsifal, with the memory of his lonely path to acknowledge his own suffering ringing in his ears, asks the suffering Fisher King and Fortis, "What ails thee?" With the question finally being asked, the miracle of healing begins and creates a luminous presence all around. Réponse de Joie, who is the Grail bearer, enters, holding, this is a quote from the book, between her hands a silver chalice in which gleamed the stone. So here both chalice and stone form the radiance of the Grail, and the stone shimmering magically with both light and dark leads Parsifal to marvel at how these healing symbols point to all of nature. And returning to Jung's vision, he experiences the living quality of matter that guides us on our journeys through life. The restoration of the spirit of nature, anima mundi, soul of the one world behind this world, is perhaps what restores the Grail. Not, as Kundry suggests at one point in the novel, as a thing to be found or an absence to be mourned, but a presence patiently awaiting our attention. Perhaps the restoration of the Grail is an experience of the fathomless mysteries of life that restores our connection to the sacred. And an experience like that, it's very hard to go on doing harm. And here is another alchemical picture. And here we see the union of humankind, the adept in the center of the picture, the union with humankind, with nature and the cosmos, and the spiritualization of matter. So here, the whole thing, you've got there are other halves, you've got the animals, you've got the planets, and above the astrological, the fateful elements in life, one might say. Above that, you have, this extraordinary golden light, and above that, into the mysteries for which there are no words. Perhaps the Grail form, so yeah, this is the union of humankind with nature and the cosmos. So this is, you know, an image of the sacred marriage that hopefully will lead us as we, all of us, are making more efforts to become aware of exactly how the feminine principle, both men and women alike, operate, rescuing it from, you know, eons of patriarchal domination. And so this is the hope. Maybe it'll take another 700 years, I don't know. But hopefully it's constellated again. I think we can see in the crop formations that it absolutely is constellated again, the sacred marriage. We've seen that in these formations. And that will lead us to the stellar age. So I think if you've read Anne Baring's work, The Dream of the Cosmos, extraordinary encyclopedic book. She traces where we've come from, you know, the dominance of the lunar era, which was followed by the solar era. And hopefully, as we can regain our connection to the sacred, it will gradually lead to the stellar age. Here's a picture of the Pleiades star system. Perhaps the Grail formation, exquisitely presented to us in the fields this summer, offers us the possibility of this healing presence. Earth now seen, the celestial earth, as Corban puts it, and encourages us to reach into our creative imaginations to co-create the union of spirit in matter, what John Michel calls linking the Grail myth and the centrality of soul values. The number 7, the feminine, with the sacred foundational pattern of 12, the masculine principle, what he calls a heavenly sanctuary on earth. Jesse Weston writes, the Grail is a living force. It will never die. It may indeed sink out of sight and for centuries even disappear, but it will rise to the surface again and become once more a theme of vital importance. And Gary Sparks, who's a Jungian analyst, but also a scientist, I'm not sure if he's a physicist exactly, but he's written quite succinctly on the Jung-Pauli relationship. And he writes, the observation of the guiding power of matter will be central to our mindset. A re-examination of religion, of science, of time, of reality itself will follow from the insight that the material world can communicate symbols, that there is a spiritual or guiding power in matter. And I would say we could easily extend this to the study of crop circles. Perhaps they represent the Grail mystery that leads us forth on a quest, each one making the journey in different ways, as we have seen in all the talks here at this conference. Okay, now I'd like to complete this talk with 2 things. First, I said I would come back to the musical connection between the numbers 12 and 7. My brother William Goodchild, is a musician and composer, and I sent him a photo of the Grail formation and asked for his feedback. He responded with a 3-minute composition that I'd like to play you, in which, among other things, the 12 semitones of the scale are presented. In fact, I said nothing about numbers, but the piece that he wrote said that that's the 12 semitones of the scale are represented, which means it also includes the 7. So I feel that it's a piece, it's very brief, it's a piece that unites the 12 and the 7, the solar principle and the mysteries of the feminine. And one of the things he wrote back was, I was responding, this is William, I was responding to the energy it must take to create a crop circle, the alien precision and intelligence. So after we listen to the music, I will come back with a very brief closing statement. In order to play the music, I need to exit from the pictures, from the PowerPoint, and so I'm going to do that now, and then I have to reshare and get the iTunes. It's on iTunes. If you have a pair of headphones, I don't know, Karen, does it work to, will the headphones help with the music?
They may do a little bit. Much depends on the Wi-Fi connection as to how clear you're going to hear it. So if you've got a good Wi-Fi connection, you should be able to hear it quite well. If not, then you may struggle a little.
Okay, well, we won't worry. Don't start rushing around your house trying to find earphones if you don't have them. So I'm going to exit then. Now, Karen, you might have to help me a little bit here.
Okay, so you should be able to minimize your PowerPoint program and bring up iTunes. So if you
Shall I just go out of the PowerPoint?
If you
just go out of it?
Yes, okay, yeah.
Is that okay? Now, hang on a minute. Where are you? I've lost you.
Oh, I am here, so don't worry.
Am I just not seeing you? How do I get back to you?
Okay, if you should just be able to minimize that. Can you see those three little dots in the top left there? Right in the top left.
Yes.
They're red,
yes.
red, yellow, and green. Can you see them?
No, I've actually gone out of Zoom, I think, somehow.
All right. Okay, so try stop sharing the screen. So try that.
Sorry, I seem to have lost you.
Okay, hang
on. So I see the black line across the top, but that's all I see. Oh, stop share. Am I meant to do that?
Yeah, stop the share. That's
it. Got it.
Okay, so we can see you now. And then looking at your screen, you should be able to pull up your iTunes now from the dock on the bottom there.
Right, got it.
Okay, and then you can, once you've got that up as you want it, then you'll be able to reshare your screen.
Okay. Did that work?
No, I'm still seeing you at the moment. Don't worry. That's it. I can see. Oh, there we go. Right, I can now see your iTunes, Veronica. So you should be able to just play that now.
Okay. So everybody, just let yourself, enter a kind of quiet, receptive place, and just let whatever's happening to you, wash over. And this is, I think, just under 3 minutes. So I hope you enjoy it. So this is 12 cups. Okay, so let me just end with this. So this is a piece that came after I'd been in the Clearwood, the Sun Moon formation of last year. And I wrote it actually at the Crop Circle conference, one of the early evening sessions. We were in a guided meditation. It just came spontaneously out. But the first 4 brief lines actually came, again, in a rather direct manner, at the heel stone at Stonehenge. And as you'll see, even though this was something that happened that I wrote that wrote itself, whatever, last year, it anticipates the Grail formation of this year. Daughter of time, can't you see? For a long time now, I've been calling thee to me. The chalice is restoring the wasteland. We are reseeding your planet and reseeding you. In this way, the light body of the planet and your own light body is growing and expanding. At midnight, the clock is reset, and this is now. Now is the moment that is eternal, so all is spreading throughout the planetary web. At the reset, you bring forward all the other cosmic seasons, integrating them as you move toward another era. In spite of how things appear on the surface, new energy is forming in your consciousness and in the subtle body of the earth. This is leading to a whole new era of the integration of earth spirit and heavenly matter. The sacred marriage is constellated. You are becoming aware of your stellar origins, and you are becoming a star. The you meaning humanity, obviously. Okay, thank you. That's it.
Thank you so much, Veronica. Thank you, thank you. So if I can invite everybody just to pop their cameras on now and to just keep yourself muted, and if you'd like to ask a question, there is a facility on Zoom for you to raise your hand, and I think you can do that in the chat area. There is a way to do that. So if you want to ask Veronica a question, then please let me know either in the chat or by putting your hand up. Veronica, thanks so much for a great talk. I'm just always astounded at the work that the depth of the work that you put into your presentation. So I really appreciated that. And there were just so many lovely bits in there. But I love the fact that you brought back the connection with alchemy and the fact that crop circles are a transformative phenomena, one of many, and I mean, this was one of my favorite formations from the year. I thought it was absolutely astounding. So thank you again so very much for your presentation. I really did appreciate it.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to engage with.
So if there's anybody that would like to ask a question, then please let me know, either I'm going to change the view on my screen here so that I can see the gallery of people there. So either let me know in the chat or wave at me or pop your hand up in the Zoom environment, and I will let you come and ask your questions or comments. If there's something you'd like to comment on or whatever, then please feel free to do that. Well, at the moment you've stumped everybody, Veronica. I think there's
Sorry.
there's a lot of out there. Oh, I can hear some chatting. Hi.
I heard a voice.
Yeah.
I have a question, Karen.
Hi. Ed? Yeah, please do.
Veronica, thank you. Such a wonderful presentation, and so deep, as Karen said, and rich and multi-layered. I have a special interest in devotion to Mary Magdalene, as do you. And I thought it was wonderful that you included her in this Grail saga, especially her holding the chalice in that beautiful pre-Raphaelite painting. So I wanted to ask you just to expand a little bit more upon her significance. As I'm sure you're aware, there's quite a lot of new biblical scholarship looking at the Gnostic Gospels, the Gospel of Mary Magdalene and so forth, saying that she was regarded by many of the early followers of Jesus as his co-equal. There is even, I understand, in France, a representation of her in a stained glass window, wearing a mitre, holding a staff as though she were a bishop. And so, of course, there's the Eucharistic significance as well of the chalice. So if you could just expand a little bit more on your knowledge and love of Mary Magdalene in relationship to this mystery, and in particular that crop circle that you showed, as Jonathan pointed out, has 153 little remarkable patterns around the circle, which of course relate to the Vesica Piscis. Please expand a little bit more on Magdalene and the mystery, and if you like, this particular crop circle that you indicated.
Well, of course, that's a very, very huge topic, obviously. I think just at this moment, I've been really immersing myself more in the recent translation made available by Jean de Quillon of Magdalene's Gospel. And it's an extraordinary document. And if you're interested in Magdalene, I don't know whether you've read it.
Not yet, but I will now that you've told me about it. Thank you.
Well, one of the most extraordinary things about it is, from my point of view, is that at the end of the Gospel, there is this vision that Mary shares and writes about to complete the Gospel. And it's a vision of the tree of life. It doesn't, as far as I know, appear anywhere else in any of the Gnostic texts, because she is known, in the Gnostic texts, or some of them, as you say, as a co-equal partner. But it's clear in this one that she really was the holder of the mysteries. And what I love about the tree and her vision of the tree is that at each bough, there's both a boon and a challenge. And there are 8 boughs, and she ascends the tree. So it's an image of the tree of life. But what I love about it particularly is that it includes the shadow. So it basically says you're not going to really, I mean, we were studying it with Jean earlier this autumn, and I felt like I hadn't even reached the first bough. So, and it starts with compassion, and usually you think that's sort of the end, but that's where it starts, and it goes on from there. And then, of course, at each level, you have to, you're invited to look at the other side of that. So whether it's your rage or whatever. And so for me, with my strong Jungian background and influence,
Yes.
it's clear that the Christianity as a path of illumination in this world, not in some world to come, but we're supposed to be able to do it here. That was or at least make an effort to do it here. Let's put it that way, because who knows if you ever get to complete it or not.
Right.
But as I say, I don't think that's the point. I think it's the effort one is making at any stage that matters. But it includes at every level this shadow side of one's psychology, and that to me makes it very, very important. Gosh, there's so much to say about Mary Magdalene as a person, as an individual, but also for me, and when we've done pilgrimages, we try to look at where she fits in a kind of archetypal pattern. So I would say she goes back, her symbol, as it were, goes back to, Isis and the death rebirth mysteries. It's all, I think most of the paths, the Gnostic paths, have to do with death and rebirth. Alchemy does, Jung's individuation does. And it makes it very clear in this gospel that the Christian effort is about that too. So I don't think I can say any more than that just now.
No, that's plenty. Thank you very much, Veronica. And I look forward to corresponding with you perhaps in future.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. I'll send you some of my articles about her. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, by the way, there is something on my website that I wrote. My website is lamentably out of date, really, but there is a paper that I wrote soon after the vision I had that is called, I can never remember the title, but something like The Magdalene Mysteries and the Path of the Blue Rose.
Yes, I noticed that, and I will be reading that. Thank you. Thank you so much. Pleasure. Thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else?
Comment?
Yep. Hi, Mark.
Hello, Karen. Hi. I just wanted to remind everyone that 10 years ago, August 13th, there was a formation at North Down near Beckhampton. That's the A3, I think, between Devizes and Avebury. This formation was called or nicknamed the Chalice, and you write that it was a majestic formation and married together many symbolic elements. And at its most basic, the formation is a dumbbell, 2 circles held together by a connecting bar, and at one end, 7 concentric semicircles make up what appear to be wings enfolding the top circle. The use of the number 7 gives this formation a highly numinous and spiritual aspect. And if it were to be interpreted as a grail, it may symbolize a covenant between the circles and humanity, one in which the circles provide spiritual nourishment, and we in turn allow them into our hearts and are transformed by them. 10 years ago, a Grail. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing.
Sorry, what was the date of that one, Mark?
August 13th, 2010,
Thank you.
North Down.
Questions, comments, anything? Don't be shy.
Hi, Thomas.
Yes, Thomas.
I have a question about synchronicity, but first I give example because last year I was in 2019 in Danebury because this was my first crop circle where I could dowse. I use pendulum for dowsing, and this year I bought a dowsing book, and then I left this package. And as you can see, there are like lines coming out from this. And this year in Danebury, there was crop circle, but you cannot see, but there are similar lines coming from this place. So I have first question to you, Veronica. Would you consider this as kind of synchronicity? And the more general question I have, is there a kind of synchronicity, how to say, different kinds of synchronicities? Do you know about some kind division of synchronicities?
Well, I think, you know, they're not always positive, for one thing. I think for me, and I've really tried to look at what Jung wrote about it, and he's quite clear that you have to weed out the idea that it might actually be a causal connection that your ego is making. So I think one of the things that makes, for me, a synchronicity genuine is that there is a real shock. there's an aha moment, there's a real shock to the system when you have a dream or a hunch or a vision or something, and then sort of almost like out of the blue, and it really just stops you in your tracks. So if you had that experience with what you just described, I would say it's a message for you to go further with it.
All right, thank you.
If it was something that you sort of made it happen, as it were, I mean, I don't know, because it looked like it could be sort of related. I'm not saying that's not important, but I think it doesn't really fulfill the parameters of synchronicity. We tend to sort of say things are synchronistic at the moment because it's sort of quite a buzzword that really aren't. And so I like to keep them for the really ones where you know you've been visited by something other than yourself.
Yeah, because for me this looks like individual synchronicity, although you cannot see those lines here. Because
no, I can't actually see them.
Yeah, but if you could see, they would be similar, like in this picture. Yeah.
Yeah, I see.
And so far nobody could explain this, why these lines are there. And I bought this in March when this crop circle appeared in England at all. So
I think you found some meaning, and I think you need to investigate it further, probably, because it's speaking to you somehow, and I think that's really important to pay attention to.
Yeah, and then I make posts on Facebook. Actually, this was my first or second post from Danebury this year, also last year, about this crop circle from 2019. And that's somehow very, very strange. And also on this, there is another shape here. And then similar crop circle, almost exactly the same, a few years ago, was here in England, in Hackpen Hill. And then in this year, near Warminster, appeared similar one, but the dots were outside.
Well, you know, I think you get hunches, and I think
maybe
those are important to follow.
That's why I'm asking if it's the synchronicity like small synchronicities or big synchronicities, you know, like people see small orbs and some people see big UFOs.
Yeah. Well, I think you're seeing something that feels important to you, and I think therefore it's something that you need to pursue, perhaps.
All right. Thank you very much.
Find out a bit more about what it might mean for you, and maybe for more than just you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Thomas. Okay, so there's just that people are shedding their shyness now, Veronica. So I have got Juliet, Marion, and then Todd. So Juliet, if I could ask you, please, do you want to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Thank you, Karen. Veronica, it's so lovely to see you again. We met at the lunch table at the Bear Hotel last summer, and it's really a privilege to be here with everybody. And your presentation was so rich and so deep and so masterfully woven together that I really, really appreciate the diversity of perspectives that you've gathered to bring to the table and weaving it all into the crop circle phenomenon. So thank you. Really, really loved it. Really did. My question is, are you familiar with the aspect of the Grail that presents itself in the human energy field and in the movement of life force in the human body? Is that an aspect that you've explored at all?
There is a wonderful meditation that I learned, my husband and I learned 2 or 3 years ago when we were still living in the States, that indeed did include that. And it's one that I practice because I really feel it's really important. It's got a special name in Chinese perspective, but I can't remember the name of it now. It's one of those sort of long, there's something of longevity and something or other else, but it is essentially a tree of life Grail meditation that involves the biofield and the human energy field. So I don't know whether that's what you're thinking, but that's what came immediately into my mind when you said what you just said.
Well, just like with the crop circle phenomenon, there are so many different perspectives and experiences of it. The same with the Grail. It means so many different things to so many different people.
Absolutely.
And I appreciate that you brought that in. I have a meditation or a practice, the toroidal breath, breathing the form of the torus, the toroidal field, which is the movement of all life forms, whether it's the planet or the human biofield or a red blood cell or an apple being the classic example, the apple. And so you breathe in through the root chakra and up your vertical power current and out the crown and down and around. Mm-hmm. And this is actually a spiral. And when this is drawn with lines representing the direction of movement, it forms a perfect cup, a perfect Grail, with the central vortex of the torus being the stem of the chalice. And then as it opens up at the top, there's the cup. And when I saw the beautiful picture of Magdalene holding the cup, that was the image that gave the closest geometry, in my perspective, the closest approximation of the geometry of the Grail that is present in the force of life, the life force shape itself.
Beautiful. Thank you.
And yeah, and it made me feel like my cup runneth over. That where that comes from, just my perspective, my cup runneth over when I'm in alignment with spiritual purpose, like you say, with the awakened state. My cup runneth over because my toroidal field is moving and my Grail is active inside of me. And when you showed the picture of the barren landscape with just the tree to one side, it's like the barren landscape, the Grail is lost, which is when we lose our spiritual center, our own inner landscape is void of the Grail because we're out of alignment, we're not flowing. So that's just some feedback.
Well, we can see that now in our culture too. The Grail is lost on not only personal but collective levels in a massive way at the moment, which is, in my view, the reason we're in the mess we're in. But I think you draw attention for how important it is to make a bodily practice out of these deep and eternal truths. And that's one of the reasons I started pilgrimages, because that's what we try to do there in terms of uniting our dream time with actually walking the earth and visiting sacred sites where the veils are thin and you are supported in that space, which for me is the imaginal world between, I hate to use these terms because they don't really fully express what I feel, but you enter that field that is really between you and the other as an object. And it's probably similar to what you're talking about energetically. But for me, that's the place of vision, and certainly embodying what we know is absolutely crucial. And I think the methods you just suggested, and I do pilgrimage walking or just walking in nature in general, because I love to walk. But it's a way of letting nature too know that you are tuned in and aware that it's providing all this nourishment and food and air and beauty all around. So I think it's multidimensional for me, you know, but I appreciate the meditation you've described. It sounds wonderful.
Thank you, Veronica. I'm really appreciating the work that you've brought to the table. It was really great. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Juliet.
Thank you, Juliet. Marion, you have
Yes, hi. I do. A few impressions, and then actually it seems like part of my question might have just been answered by Juliet, which is interesting. But in the crop circle, one of the things that the impressions for me are that the Grail is receiving from all directions. It feels very hopeful. It feels like a resolution of our consciousness in a certain way, you know, that the Grail is receiving from all directions. And that it also, when I first saw the crop circle, I thought more of champagne flutes than of the Grail. And of course, champagne flutes, you know, they're tall and skinny and they have the bubbles and, you know, and they're more for celebration and for, you know, the marriage of the union, you know, it's done at the champagne is drunk at the wedding. And so this feels all very, very hopeful. That's wonderful. My question really, you know, had to do with the stem and the base and the significance. You know, Juliet just answered this a little bit, but do you have any reference to what the stem and the base represents in the Grail legend?
Well, that's a very complex question in a way, because it depends how you understand the Grail. One of the very many symbols is the chalice and the cup, and that's related to the feminine. But also it's a search, it's a spiritual search. So as on any spiritual search, you have to be grounded in your own body and in your own roots on this earth. Otherwise you become a bliss bunny and you just bliss yourself out in your higher chakras and you're of no use to anybody. So what I like about the cup is that, to me, it's symbolic of the tree of life, and roots and our physical presence on this earth is absolutely essential to honor before we start kind of wandering off into other dimensional places, which is something I enjoy doing too. So that's what I would say about the stem and being rooted with whatever path you're following. And I would say also, it's not only a question of being rooted, it's a question of not following your path as an ideology. It's a question of following your path, what you've been given to do. And I think, you know, like, and this is part of the tale, that many knights set off in search of the Grail, but only a few get there. And most of the time, I think we feel we're not getting there. But it's the search. You know, Jung says, when you're on the way, you're at the goal. So it's the search itself, but that cannot be an ideology. It has to be something that is moving you because you've had an experience of something, whether it's a depression, an illness, a vision, a dream, a walk in the park, or seeing somebody on a bus, I don't know, whatever it is that creates a wake-up call in your soul that says to you, hey, hang on a minute, this is not okay. And then the search begins. And so that's what I would say about the stem and the base. Be rooted in whatever path you take.
That's wonderful. And just to put that back in with what Juliet was saying about the movement of the torus, that, you know, she was doing it in this direction, but I imagine it, I mean, I think it also goes inward, you know, the reception. The Grail is the receiver of what is coming. So the reception and bringing it into that center and allowing it to infiltrate your being.
Well, I think as I tried to describe in the vision that was given to me, energy was coming from above while water was being drawn up from below. So you're absolutely right. And I do think it is that we are, as humans, on this sort of edge between a spiritual and a physical experience. And the sacred marriage for me is about bringing those two things together, which I think is why it's about a story of the heart. Because for me, it's about bringing the higher knowing and the vision and the insights from your upper chakras down into your instinctual life, into the body. And so the heart is the center. And I think, as Rilke says, you know, love is the most difficult of all. I mean, when you read the story symbolically, it truly is an incredible map for the soul, but it is a journey. And, you know, that's the question. How do we unite opposites in ourselves, in not just an ideational way, but a way that we really feel, you know, that we're balancing the urge to write or work or achieve with the influence of intuition and feeling and the imagination. And, you know, this is a challenge to humans, but we do stand, as the shamans say, between the heavens and earth. And I think what I love particularly about the crop circles is that we see spirit in matter. That's what intrigues me about the geometry of them. They're not just willy-nilly a pattern, you know, they are encoded, but they are in grain. And I think that's a tremendous metaphor for us to take on board, that we are embodied beings. It's about spirit in matter. It's about the spiritualization of matter, and it's about the embodiment of spirit. And that's the alchemical project as well. It's exactly the same thing as most traditions. We have to try and unite spirit in matter now. It's no good having the Christian thing of the spirit up in the clouds or away from earth or whatever. It's about bringing it into the body and also bringing it into the earth. So otherwise, I think we're done for.
Yeah. Just as one last little offering, I've been really noticing in my own work that, and with pretty much everybody that I observe, that the difficulty of actually receiving all of our impressions, because experience is so intense. And that in order to love, it's really more about receiving, really being willing to have all of the reception, which is the Grail. It receives everything and allows it to come in, and then reality can resolve.
You have to be a bit careful, because if you eat too much food, you get indigestion. So
I have been following that one too much too, so I have to admit.
I can relate to that because I love food. But you know, it's a question of measure, I think, too, which is also what geometry is about.
Thank you.
And you know, to do little bits at a time that we can really digest, as it were.
Allowing it to harmonize. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Marianne. Appreciate it very much. Anything else? Is that Julie? Julie.
Hello, Veronica. Thank you so much for a wonderful evening of literature, music, and art, and crop circles. It's been fabulous. But it's just a very quick question for you about the beautiful images you gave us. I would just love to, I presume you've drawn from different sources, and obviously I recognize some of them, but I would love to follow up on those myself and just research some of them and have them in front of me. And I just wondered if there was a way of finding a reference from you or something, so I could do that.
Absolutely. In fact, what I'll do is I'll put my paper into some kind of form that I could put on my website, rather than what I have in front of me. But I'll clean it up and I'll put it on my website, and I will add a list of all the pictures and where they're from.
Lovely, thank you.
It'd be a pleasure for me to do it anyway.
Lovely.
So thank you for asking. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
And my website is justmyname.com.
And what I can do is when I send the recording out of the presentation tonight, is that I'll put a link to Veronica's website on there so that everybody will.
Oh, that would be great. Thank you, Karen. And don't be put off with the fact that it's a bit out of date, because we couldn't do pilgrimages this year. So hopefully next year, I hope.
Yes, yeah, let's hope. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Julie.
David, you'd like to ask a question?
I don't think it's much of a question, just I'm still kind of in a quiet meditative place, and I know I need to come back to this presentation. It felt a little bit like a prayer, actually. And so I'm still digesting it. It's like, I just need to see it. But as you were talking, I just had different images of the tree. You know, there's Yggdrasil, I think, in Norse mythology, and the Tree of Life in different places. I think there was that movie by the Aronofsky brothers, and I can't remember it at the moment. And then my own experience, right? And I think marrying matter and spirit. I've danced with the Shoshone actually here in the States around a real tree, which is really representing the axis mundi, and in those rituals trying to marry, right? Trying to be really present. So I just, my brain is just sort of swimming. It's not really a question so much, but thank you for the presentation. I think the quietness sometimes should just be an indication for some of us that we just need to sit and digest some of the material for a while. I am sort of left speechless, actually. Okay. So thank you. It's a good place to be.
Thank you, David. I appreciate what you're saying very much.
Thank you. And I think somebody's just put in the chat there, David, that the film you may have been thinking about is The Fountain. Yeah. One of my favorites too, that. Okay, well, we're going to draw to a close. Before we do, actually, Veronica, there's just a little story I'd like to share with you before we go, and that is that this is Lindsay Clark's retelling of the Parsable story, and it's one of my favorites too. And when I was training to be a psychotherapist, not long after I had qualified, the woman who had supervised me throughout the whole process actually left the organization that I'd been working for, and it was a terrible, terrible wrench. It was awful. But as a parting gift, I actually gave her a copy of this book, because I think when I first met her, I saw her as Kundry. She was a wicked, wicked witch. But by the
all good therapists are, right?
Absolutely, most supervisors are. But by the time we got to the end of it, she was a woman that I admired so deeply. And when she called me to tell me that she was leaving, I burst into tears. It was terrible. But still, she, you know, I felt that such is the universality of some of the archetypes that are in this really, really important human myth, I felt that I, you know, had a very personal relationship with it, just not only in that situation, that's the one that kind of stands out, but in many others. But anyway, I felt I'd like to share that. So, yeah.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, those kind of losses are huge because, you know, they're soul losses. When you've had that kind of relationship with someone in your training, there's a tremendous bond that develops, and it's a terrible loss when it has to change. Thank you for sharing that, Karen.
So thank you so much, everybody, for being here this evening. Just a quick round of applause for Veronica, because she did such a great job this evening. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed it.
Oh, that's good. So tomorrow night we will be back at the same time, 6 p.m. UK time, for Dan Vidler, who's going to be taking us inside some of the crop circles from the 2020 season. So don't miss that. And I will send out a link to this talk and to Veronica's website as soon as I've uploaded it to the Google Drive. So thanks again, everybody, and hope to see you all again very soon. Cheerio, good night.
Thank you, Karen.
Bye.
Bye-bye.